What is going on, guys? Blink here, back with a new guide. So I decided to create this fighting guide to help you guys make the right decisions if you've been in these scenarios. Also, last month's V-Bucks giveaway has been announced on my Twitter, and this month's V-Bucks giveaway is now going on, so make sure to visit the link in the description to enter. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications as I post an Amazon gift card code in the comments every time I upload. By turning on notifications, you'll have way better chance of getting here first and redeeming that code. Anyways, guys, let's get to this guide. So, we'll start a little simple in this first example. There's a player up ahead, and I built myself a ramp to peek over. He went into super defense mode right away and placed a bunch of floors over him. What I like to do when anyone places floors over top of themselves is to get on top of the floor and take it over. In this scenario, it allows me to get closer to my opponent without giving up the high ground. I'm now able to do more critical damage with my shotgun as it's in range. This is also a good way of holding the high ground in a building battle without giving it up, as you don't want to step on another opponent's floor since he can be boxed in and have traps placed inside. They can edit the floor you're standing on and drop you down into their 1x1 and trap kill you. So anytime you can, you want to place at least a stair over top of their materials to avoid being in trouble in an instant, especially if you have no clue where your opponent can be. So this opponent tried confusing me with all his materials. I never overbuilt and made sure to analyze the situation. I was able to track him the whole way because I took the building slow. He tried getting off a heal, which gave me an easy elimination. So in this next example, we'll talk about getting pinched right after eliminating one opponent. So I was able to finish off this first opponent simply because she never built. Anytime an opponent doesn't build, that's an easy fight for you. Just make sure you're building a wall and a ramp anytime you're vulnerable. After eliminating her, I got pressured by another player right after. You can see the bullets tracing towards me. So build your walls, guys. They'll save you from taking massive damage. Tried figuring out where this opponent was and made sure to build walls as I looted. If your opponent isn't pressuring you hard, then quickly use walls to loot up and get anything you need. Check your materials, as those are going to be the most important. You can see I was able to get 500 materials because I made sure to loot quickly and not wait for my opponent's push. As long as you're quickly looting, then you should have no problems getting anything you need. Now, this opponent got directly above me, so my best bet would be to see if I can place any sort of damage onto them. You'll be at a disadvantage without the high ground, but as long as you know how to play from below, then that advantage can still be yours. If you can put yourself in bad situations and figure out how to play it out well, then you'll be improving your skills even more. So, my best bet was to wait for the peek out and see if I could get a hit off before pushing up. Don't peek out for too long. One burst or a few AR shots is all you should be doing every few seconds. I got some damage dealt onto my opponent and went right for the build up just in case I can catch him healing. Now, he noticed my build up and got above me. As you guys know from all my guides, you go around his stairs and build up. I did take some massive damage as he spotted it pretty quickly, and I tried getting above him. I ended up missing my first stair jump, but I made sure to add that second stair above him. Because of my first stair miss, I can't go back to step 1 and place my first stair down, as he'll already be on step 2, which is above me. I continued on to step 2 and added the stair above him, which blocked him from building. Now I can place my first stair down, and he now has to take another way up, which gave me time to grab the high ground back. Got above him and got an easy elimination. Just made sure to peek out slightly as I shot. So in this next example, I got that instant build off right when my opponent started shooting me. Never saw his face, but made sure to build wherever the shots were coming from. Went for the high ground instantly, and he tried doing the same. I was able to block him from building up with a few materials. Figure out where your opponent is and try to block their way up. It'll just give you more time to fight them from above. If you aren't sure where your opponent is, then listen and build cover in the approximate area you hear him. You can see every time I was looking for my opponent, I added a wall and a staircase. You never want to fight without cover. The most common thing you should be doing is building yourself a wall and a staircase for cover. He started focusing on my materials, so I pre-lined up my crosshair and went for a jump shot, since the angle I was in was a little awkward to peek from. If I missed the shot, I would have built myself a wall and a staircase and still made sure to stay above him. Simple fight, just make sure you're adding that wall and the staircase, even if you don't know where your opponent is. Anytime you're spotting, spot with cover. In this next example, my opponent panicked and kept trying to rebuild as I was jumping up with him. The worst situation is when someone's super close and it's not easy to build above him, as they can just jump with you just like I did. I've learned from previous fights that your best bet is to just pull out your weapon and go for the shots. Every time he built, I jumped up with him, got off an elimination because he panicked. So if you end up being literally in someone's face, then don't try blocking them with a wall, because the wall will usually end up being behind both of you. Your best bet is adding a staircase, but that doesn't always work. The only way it would have worked is if I was just slightly farther away. So if you ever do end up pulling out your materials, then placing a staircase will be your only chance of getting above. So in this next example, I ended up fighting a bunch of players and looted up. As I did that, I heard another player behind me, but never knew where he was. I decided to get to the safe zone before him, as I made sure to spot. Now, my favorite thing to do to spot players as you move is to turn when you jump. Every jump you make, add a half turn in the direction where your opponent can be. If I never turned around, I would have maybe got shot in the back of the head from this opponent. When you hear an opponent nearby, don't forget about them as you run away. The half turn will allow you to spot as you keep moving forward. Because of the spot, I was able to get a snipe onto my opponent. That's one less player I have to now worry about. In this last example, there were two players fighting and I went to try pinching them both. I ended up getting shot from another direction and just made sure to build walls around me because I wasn't sure where the shots were coming from. So as I tried pressuring these opponents, another player tried shooting my materials down. If you have the time, try holding your high ground as you pressure this new opponent. When a new opponent joins the fight, you always want to hold the high ground over both opponents. That way you can spot easier. You can also see I got the wall and the stair down in front of my opponent before I even went for the peek. Now, I never engaged in my first fight, so the quicker I eliminate this new opponent, the better it will be when I start the new fight. You'll avoid getting shot in the back in a 1v1. A lot of people say that they get shot in the back as they fight, and the best thing you can do is see if you can eliminate that second player. If you're getting shot in the back, a lot of the times the second player is standing still, so your sniper will come in handy for a quick finisher. 90% of the time, I'll get the elimination with the sniper, so make sure you guys are improving your sniping abilities as it plays a big part in your building skills. Now, it's time to fight this next opponent. He ended up finishing the other player, so it ended up being a 1v1. I can hear him using a campfire down below, and I tried taking advantage of the situation. Pinching opponents that have just finished a fight is the best way of trying to get a kill off, as there's a bigger chance of them needing to heal. That's why initially in this example, I went for the push. Joining a 1v1 fight can grant you both kills as they might both need to heal. So I actually gave up the high ground, which was a mistake. Once again, it's fine to make mistakes as long as you know how to recover from them. Instantly went for the build up and my opponent beat me up. He put a shot into me and I instantly placed a wall down. Your player model should smack into his own wall. That's how fast you need to place it. Next, keep trying to build up for that high ground as you place walls where your opponent is. He was trying to put shots into all my materials, which allowed me to get the high ground. If you have the high ground, you want to make sure you're building up as you put pressure on. When your opponent gets a little close, build a little higher and throw in more shots. I ended up getting the high ground and put the pressure right back onto him. He ended up falling down and taking some damage, as you guys can hear the sound of someone taking damage from falling. So the next step is to find your opponent as soon as you can. You don't want him to heal as the fight will reset. Keep the pressure on. I suspected him being in the 1x1 below me as I was never there before. Faked out the roof break as it was a good way to confuse my opponent. If you're struggling on replacing your opponent's wall, then try getting two walls down to low HP and choose one of the walls to replace and edit. It'll give you a better chance of replacing one. Now, one more thing I should have done is replace the wall with brick. That way my opponent wouldn't be sure if it's his wall or not. You can usually catch your opponents out with their building materials after you edit it, as they'll think it's still their wall. This opponent tried jump padding away and couldn't because I never destroyed the top wall. Ended up getting the kill as I utilized the right side peeking advantage. So to conclude this guide, we've covered the best ways of approaching these fighting scenarios. Hopefully I've helped some people out with this guide, and a like and a sub would be greatly appreciated as it does help me out a lot. Anyways guys, thanks for watching and I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and I'll see you on the next one.